Good morning. Good morning. I will be reading from the Old Testament this morning, the book of Micah. I am reading Micah chapter 6, verse 8. But he's already made it plain how to live, what to do, what God is looking for in men and women. It's quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love. And don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. This is God's word for God's people.
Thanks be to God. Okay. Some of you will realize what some of my family already knows. When you get me where they can't get to me, they're never sure what I'm going to say. So some of this I'm going to talk, some of this I'm going to read. I don't want to lose. If I lose a word, my place will be here all day. Since Mike is going to start in September talking about our purpose in life, and purpose can be interpreted as gifts, as talents, however you want to say it. So that's going to be his theme in September. So I thought I'll see what I can give you on that. So this is purpose according to me. We hate to change the way we do things. You know, we've always done it that way. It's the way we should always do it. But maybe that's not always true. And I want to start with a story, and it's about Rick and me. When we moved to our current house in Sydney, there was a lady that lived next door, and soon after we moved in, she came over, introduced herself, gave us her name, explained a little bit about her, and then she just went back home. And we noticed she was very private. When she would work out in her yard or anything, she would always focus on what she was doing. She never looked around and just, when she'd take her trash out, it was straight to the garage and straight back. Now, if we would, hey, Lois, how you doing or something, she might wave, but that was Lois. So, a couple of years down the road, we were outside cleaning our garage, which is something we love to do. And she came over and she wanted to talk to us. She told us she had been diagnosed with cancer and would be going through some therapy and some treatments. She wondered if we would be willing to mow her grass for her, because you got to keep your yard nice, don't want the neighbors to talk. So we agreed that we would do that and that we would help her out. And it was no more than a neighbor coming and saying, hey, I need help, and us saying, sure, why not? There were no heavenly choirs, no bolt of lightning. There's just neighbors doing what we thought neighbors should do. She would call us a day or two before so we could plan our schedule when she wanted the grass mowed, and we did. She started her treatments, and we would do her mowing when she needed. Sometimes she would mention that the treatments were having an effect on her. If any of you know someone who has cancer or has experienced cancer, you know how hard the treatments can be. Lois's treatments were hard on her sometimes, but I was amazed. She stayed home alone the entire time and continued her routines of straight work out in her yard when she could. But then came that one treatment. I noticed that she wasn't up moving around for like a day or so, and when I tried to call, she didn't answer. So I went over to check on her. The treatment she had on Thursday had made her terribly, terribly sick, and she was very weak. She had laid on the couch for 2 days, getting up only when necessary. And answering the phone before I hung up was impossible. So I went over and I knocked on the door and I heard her say, please wait, please wait. She got to the door and she let me in. And, we kind of talked and she explained what had happened. So I helped her arrange some things, got the phone closer to her, got her something to eat. And I asked her if she would allow me every couple days to come check on her, just to make sure she was okay. And she agreed. And so the changes began. She would let me know when her treatments were, so we knew when to come visit. When she felt more comfortable, she started sharing her life. The fact that her parents and her only brother had passed away, and she didn't really have any direct family. Our visits changed from a couple times a day to just about every evening. And as a side note, she loved to watch baseball on TV. And she would watch the Little League games. And Rick always watches the Little League games. So she would ask, did Rick see that game? Did Rick see that play? So they would connect on Little League. I found out that she grew up in Pennsylvania, and she was actually a college professor that taught at a local university. And she moved to Sydney after retiring from teaching. As the treatments progressed, we started to help her more. Rick would take her to her hair appointments, which I thought was nice. And I would go to the grocery for her and other errands. We adopted Lois, and she adopted us. We became the family she didn't have. We talked about everything. I have a lot of family, so I would share my stories of what they were doing. She would show me cards that she got from friends and her people at church. And we even talked about church sometimes. This became our way of life for over a year. Then in the spring, Lois showed signs of getting better. The doctors were giving her some encouragement. The treatments had taken a toll on her, but she looked to be improving. In July, the doctors decided the treatments and the medication had destroyed her gallbladder, and she needed to have it removed. They felt she was healthy enough and strong enough to have the surgery. She would have it on Thursday and be home on Thursday night. I hugged her before I left on Wednesday, and told her that we would be praying for her and we would watch to see her come home the following evening. When I got home from work, she wasn't back yet. We kept watching, but she didn't come home. We watched all day Friday, no Lois. On Monday, Lois called to tell us that she was going to a nursing home. She would be going later that day, and she wanted to make sure that we knew where she was. She went on to explain that the cancer had returned and was much worse, and she refused further treatment. She had been through enough. I was devastated, but I understood her decision. I promised we would be at the nursing home on Tuesday. We went to the nursing home at least twice a week from then on. When she got so weak that eating was hard for her, we would help feed her. Sometimes we would just sit with her and watch TV. On Sunday, during our regular visit, she was very weak and very tired. She barely opened her eyes. But she held my hand, and she knew we were there. We got ready to leave, and I told her I would be back later in the week. She gave a slight smile and a nod, but never opened her eyes. She passed away the following morning about the time I went to work. Rick was trying to get there, but she passed away quickly sleeping before he arrived. Lois changed our world in ways we never imagined. She taught us about being strong when you're facing the world alone, how to be confident in your decisions, no matter how hard they might be. I believe we showed Lois that you can be a family with no blood connection. How strangers are maybe just friends you haven't met yet. Did we change Lois's world? I believe we did. All of our worlds were changed forever, and we didn't even realize it until after the fact. Now, What does that have to do with us? What can the people that changed the little Maplewood church do? There's not many of us. Some of us are old. Some of us are sick. And some of us are just too darn busy. In Micah 6:8 it says, but he's already made a plan how to live and what to do. What God is looking for in men and women. It's quite simple. Do what is fair and just to your neighbor. Be compassionate and loyal in your love, and don't take yourself too seriously. Take God seriously. Take God seriously. Of course we do that. Who doesn't, right? But do we? Do we believe that we are created in God's image? Do we believe that we are beautifully and wonderfully made exactly how God wants us? That He gave us everything we need to advance His kingdom and make disciples? Do you believe that God doesn't make junk and that all of us have special purposes that God gave us to do when we can to make this world, our world, a better place? Do we believe what Mike tells us? That there is enough and we are enough. These purposes or talents or however were hard for me. I am not talented. I can't dance. I can't sing. I can't quote the Bible. I'm not a big fan of teaching kids. I'm more of a follower, not a leader. So how can we change anything if we can't do those things? Then after our enough Bible study, I got to looking into what gifts really mean. Here's what I found out. Did you know giving is a gift? Not just giving, but time, ideas, muscle, and of course money, but it's more than that. Serving is a gift. Making cookies for a meal, serving communion, greeting at the door. Faith, believing when others are doubting, and trusting when life looks rough. There are also pastoring, administration and leadership, wisdom, evangelism, and knowledge. Mercy, who can't do that? And there's others. I bet each of you do some of these every day and never consider a purpose. I was excited when I realized that singing, dancing, and preaching like Billy Graham weren't on the list. Can these things can be like sending birthday cards and anniversary cards to people in the church, baking pies to raise money, being the church secretary or the church treasurer, and keeping our church running. If we want things to happen or change on the outside, we need to change how we see ourselves on the inside. Change your thoughts. We've always done it this way. Why change it now? Or I wish this or that would happen, instead of praying that God will make it happen. For the people that work hard and battle to make change, resulting in being burned out, they need to learn to manage their time and not overdo it. Without a vital relationship with God and other Christians, your fire for your mission will burn out. You cannot change the world running on empty. Matthew 26:41 says, "Watch and pray so that you will not fall into temptation. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak." The example of Jesus and his strength of ministry, like our own, came from his relationships with God and close friends. In Luke chapter 22:40, Jesus says, "Pray that you do not give in to temptation." Remember, in order to make change, we need to start with changing ourselves and maintaining that change. Next, we need to love others. Our most immediate opportunity for change is through sharing God's love in your relationship with others, such as family, co-workers, friends, neighbors. Now, I get it. Not always easy. I was at a family reunion yesterday. It is not always easy. Yeah. There's always those people that are hard to deal with. But we are told in John 12:26, if any of you want to serve me, then follow me. Then you'll be where I am, ready to serve at a moment's notice. The Father will honor and reward anyone who serves me. Your mission is to fill your network of relationships with the grace of Christ, to make mercy and outreaching love a part of your everyday life. Take an inventory of your relationships and the grace they require from you. Who do you know that needs your encouragement? Who needs what only you can give? Who needs to hear about Christ from you? Your attitude towards others will either open or close relationships. Matthew 7:12 says, ask yourself what people want you to do, then grab the initiative and do it. That's from the Message Bible, and I love the slant it puts on that familiar verse. You know, the one about do unto others. You've heard it anyway. Do unto others before they do it to you and stuff like that. You need to be accepting and non-judgmental. Do you affirm people? Do you categorize them with labels, limiting how you see them? A judgmental attitude can be the greatest obstacle to the spiritual growth of another. Your prayers for others are acts of love. Through prayer, God can transform your relationships. Through prayer, you can help others become changed and support them in their life. Through prayer, God can open opportunities to reach out to others. Your friendship with others is a means by which you share your life and offer Christ to them. But you have to be real. You need to watch for opportunities and then tell them, I'm gonna pray for you, but you gotta do it. Don't say it and then forget. You gotta do it. You gotta be real. Otherwise, you fall into traps and look fake and not sincere. Then there's the community around us. Maplewood, Jackson Center, Shelby County. We're called to do justice and believe that the idea that everyone deserves an equal opportunity. Our influence in the community around us is how you participate in being a Christian. You are an integral part of the community, and how you conduct yourself can influence others. I have a story about this, and Rusty's not here. They'll get me later. We were going to a basketball game in Dayton, and they were ahead of me on the interstate, and we were going to Dayton actually to that Trent Arena. And there was an accident, so everyone was getting off of Main Street driving through town. When you drive to Dayton and you get off of Main Street, there's always a guy over here on the left. And see, you're all not using it. And he has that sign, hungry and homeless. So, as Jenny and Rusty pulled up to the light, Rusty sees the sign. Jenny wasn't paying attention because, she's reading, she's like me, she reads the billboards and the signs and everything. And Rusty said, do you have anything to eat in your purse? Yeah. Jenny thought he wanted a snack. Jenny's purse is the mecca of, mints, snacks, gum. She thought he wanted a snack, so Rusty gave her the only Rice Krispie treat in her purse. And so Rusty immediately rolled down his window and handed it to the guy. Now, Jenny was floored. She was just couldn't believe it. Now, you might think this was a nice gesture, or maybe not. But here's the rest of the story. About 5 minutes later, as I too am getting off the exit ramp and I'm sitting there, and I look over at the guy. This guy has the happiest look on his face. And I thought, he's eating something. And I'm like, what is he eating? You know, because he was enjoying it. And wow, you know. So I drive on and I get to the game and I go in and Jenny comes up to me, come on, I'm not wait for you. And I'm like, what is going on? She goes, we were driving along and Rusty rolls down the window and he asked me and I give him a Rice Krispie and he hands it to the guy. And Rusty is and Micah just laughing, which I found funny. She's still kind of in shock. Anyway, here's where I'm going. On an impulse, Rusty gave the guy what he was asking for. Unintentionally, Jenny helped the guy out also. But the guy at the stoplight was blessed also. It was only a Rice Krispie treat. But it might have been the only food it had that day. Or by the look on his face, it was the best food he had that day. Our mission to help Christ change our community by acting as an effective Christian influence in it. This is seen in Jesus' plan for ministry. Luke 4:18. God's Spirit is in me. He's chosen me to preach the message of good news to the poor, sent me to announce pardon to prisoners and recover sight to the blind, to set the burden.
I have no clue.
Is God trying to tell me something? Hurry up. The steps for ministry are first to identify situations. I think we're in one. I was hungry and you fed me. I was thirsty and you gave me drink. I was homeless and you gave me a room. I was shivering and you gave me clothes. I was sick and you stopped to visit. I was in prison and you came to me. Then those sheep are going to say, Master, what are you talking about? When did we ever see you hungry and feed you, or thirsty and give you drink? When did we ever see you sick or in prison? And the king will say, I'm telling you the solemn truth. Whenever you did one of these things to someone overlooked or ignored, it was me. You did it for me. He makes perfectly clear the significance of our response. Once we have identified a need, we need to work to correct the situation. That doesn't mean to always follow the easy path. Remember Lois? I don't believe it was easy for her to come to us and ask for help. And it took some time before we built a solid trust. But we can't be afraid to step out of our bubble and be a light or help or encouragement for others. For our community ministry, we need to be a joyful witness. Let people know by our actions, our attitude, and words that Christ is the source and strength of our passion for a more Christ-like, loving, and just world. That is the Christ way. Keep your light shining. Finally, the ministry for the world. This calls us to stretch our hearts, minds, and actions. Jesus sends us into the world, as in Matthew chapter 28. God authorized and commanded me to commission you to go out and train everyone you meet, far and near, in the way of life, marking them by baptism in the threefold name, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Then instruct them in the practice of all I have commanded you. I'll be with you as you do this, day after day, right up to the end of the age. Our church has many opportunities for you to get involved. Just look around or ask. There's always a need. Just keep in mind that you need to keep a strong foundation with faith, study, and action. But don't limit yourself. God gives us many purposes that we need to use and not keep to ourselves. A wise man said to me recently, manure is only good when you spread it around. Maybe you can visit shut-ins from our church or our community. Visit a nursing home. They love to just have someone to talk to. Volunteer to help with an activity from our missions group or help the trustees with projects. If those aren't good options, you can always pray. Letting someone know they are just being prayed for is sometimes the best gift of all. Just be sure to do it. Don't make promises you won't keep. Hopefully you're already thinking of ways in which you can start to change your world. Remember, it's not going to happen overnight. Changing begins with one small step. According to 1 Corinthians 3, I planted the seed, others watered the seed, but God made it grow. It's not the one who plants or the one who waters who is at the center of the process, but God who makes things grow. Planting and watering are menial servant jobs at minimum wage. What makes them worth doing is the God we are serving. It happens to be God's field in which we are working. We can do this if we have a plan for change in ourselves, in our relationship with others, in our community, and in our world. Amen.